a wise person told me this. It's like Remax is kind of like the Dallas Cowboys. When they're doing better, the NFL's doing better. And by the way, I'm not a Cowboys fan. I'm a Bears fan.
Yeah, you're about to get messages. You're about to get messages.
You talk about it privately. We talk about it publicly. This is the Real Estate Insiders Unfiltered Podcast. Welcome again to the Real Estate Insiders Unfiltered Podcast. I'm your host, Dwiggy Dwiggins.
Yeah, I got it back.
Along with my fearless co-host.
I am pretty fearless, that's
Mr.
true.
Crazy Uncle Keith, who was boxing this morning and beat the hell out of a bag and is quite on it today.
I was riled up today.
You were going at it.
This was a good one.
Let's talk about our friend Erik Carlson, the CEO of Remax Holdings, the new CEO. He's been in the seat for a year.
Yeah.
Tell the viewers and listeners about this conversation, because this guy he's inspirational to me. We'll tell you why.
Yeah.
But
I'm going to title this one From the Sales Floor to the C-Suite, because he talked about his experience of starting at Dish Network at the bottom and working his way all the way up to running the entire company, being the president and chief executive officer for Dish Network. Amazing conversation.
there's like maybe 50 people that have done that in a non-founder-led company.
Yeah, I can't imagine. Yeah, low number. I loved how he talked about everyone needs to carry a bag, meaning like we all have to go have a sales job at some point to learn what's important. He talked about what he learned coming into this industry, what he's learned so far. He dug in on the power of focus, his morning routine, focusing on what you can control, anchoring into why we're here and the human being and the transaction. He talked about how him and James have cocktails and talk about work efficiency, nerds, and his vision for the next 36 months for not only Remax, but the industry. It was a great conversation. You're going to dig it. Put it in your ears, kids.
Erik, welcome to the podcast. We are very excited to have you on the show.
Yeah.
Full disclosure, Keith and I know Erik. We travel in a lot of the same events and things. I've gotten to know him quite a bit over the past year and are excited to have him here because his story is one of, in my opinion, the most inspiring stories. We're going to get to hear a little bit about that today. And let's just start there for the viewers and listeners. I think I'm going to get this right, and correct me if I'm off, but started your career at Dish Network in 1995 as basically a sales associate, roughly account executive or something along those lines. And you worked your way all the way up to be the president and CEO of the business.
Wild.
Which is not very common at all. And now you're at the top spot of Remax. So give us just a little bit of a preview on that. I'm sure we'll have a lot of questions on it, but just tell us your background and how you got to this amazing role that you're at now too.
Happy to share the elevator pitch, but first off, thanks for having me. A longtime listener, I guess first-time caller.
Yeah.
But what I really appreciate about both of you is, you've been most welcoming to me. It's just a year at Remax now, and I really appreciate all the hospitality and help that you've provided on my current journey. But you're right, 1995. So I had a couple odd jobs coming out of college. My dad was a career salesperson, right? And so I thought, I should be a salesperson. So whether it was hospitality or copiers, the one thing you learn from that is carrying a bag is just so critical for your development, right? Selling something. So I tell folks that I work with, interns or college kids, go sell something, even if it's just Cutco sales knives over the summer, go carry a bag and figure out what it is, because storytelling and selling is a skill that you're going to need for the rest of your life, regardless of AI. But I think that, I joined Dish in 95 because I love Steve Jobs and Apple Computer. And I wanted to work for a founder-led company. And I wasn't able to work at Apple. And so I found an opportunity at Dish Network, which is founder-led, started by a gentleman, Charlie Ergen. And you're right, James. I started at the absolute bottom, right? Cold calling, selling large C-band dishes, those big things that have probably, tons of cement in your backyard that you still can't pull out today. And working early with kind of like a network of entrepreneurs, right? Small business folks, right? So a guy would be a postman in the during the day, and had a pole barn in Michigan, and he put in some C-band dishes. And I took the job because I really wanted an opportunity to get in with not only founder-led, but on kind of a ground floor opportunity.
Sure.
And although the company had been in business for quite some time, it was like, they're launching a new product, which was Dish Network. And so it was a ground floor type of opportunity. And I figured, hey, if I could prove myself as a young person and the company grew, heck, I could grow with it, and probably at a faster pace than with an established company. So my journey is really kind of half my time in sales and marketing type stuff, right? So either selling or managing that process. So go-to-market strategies, supporting local or national retailers, everything from the science and the art of running a sales organization, both directly and indirectly. Then I spent about 25% in operations. So you can think about in telecom, like massive call centers that you don't enjoy calling. Like an in-home services business where a person is going to, come to your home and mount metal on the outside of it and, go to your master bedroom and pull out the credenza and, hoppertize your viewing experience. There's a lot of stories there.
Oh man, we'll do those right after. We'll do those right after we stop recording. I can't wait to hear them.
Yeah. But like ops is like traditional, like billing and collections, IT, information technology, engineering, broadcast operations, all that kind of good stuff. And then I used the last 5 plus years there running the company with our chairman and founder, and really, working on managing the growth, right? So whether it was helping to grow and rebuild our Sling streaming app at that point, acquiring Boost Mobile, running our TV business that, as best as possible to allow Dish to focus on really building that 5G network. So it was a great period of time, 28 years. You don't see careers like that very often anymore.
No.
Either talks about my insanity or the great company and the journey, and that's probably a little bit of both.
Yeah, so that's actually, I have a 2-part question. So part one is, what was it about the company that enabled that to happen? Whether that was leadership or structure or entrepreneur, but what about the company created a condition where someone could start? I even scribbled it in my notes. Like, I officially prepped for this one. From the sales floor to the C-suite, right? So how did you go from, what about the company enabled that to happen? And then what about you personally? Like, was there a through line that carried you from that sales floor to the C-suite? So company and you, how did those two things fit together?
Yeah. So look, I think that you have to have a company that gives folks opportunities to succeed. And generally, that was a place that had a strong culture, put people in roles that, it wasn't really about experience. It was really about kind of, what's in you, right? Not to get too much on the old firm, but, it was more about hiring for, a little, you had a pride, venture, and winning, right? It's like, energy, intelligence, need to achieve versus, hey, how much experience do you have? And let me put you in this role. It's like, hey, you're part of our culture. You're a strong fit. You believe in what we're doing or our purpose, and we're going to give you an opportunity to succeed. And then if you're a person that likes to be curious,
right,
which I am, I think about a ton of stuff, and I probably do my best work in the shower thinking about the business, actually. And I got a great story about that later. But it's like, you have to, one is you have to have a desire to succeed. I just simply have a desire to try to get better every day. Now that doesn't happen, but if you have that mindset and if you can set kind of long-term goals and then figure out kind of what it takes, kind of inch by inch versus yard by yard, which my Latin teacher used to say, and how to get there, I think you can then find milestones to be successful. So, it is an environment, Keith, definitely, but it's also the drive of the individual. And, I'd say strong cultures help.
Isn't it wild that just saying you're going to do something and then doing it is a huge competitive advantage in life? It should be more complicated, right? You put that sort of consistent persistency around the mundane and the boring, and I said I was going to show up, so I showed up. I worked as hard as I could. That's a big percentage to the secret to success.
There's also, I'm sure, a level of loyalty there, and just getting to know you a little bit. I think in a world we've sort of lost that a little bit about loyalty to what brought you along the way, and just sticking to what you say you're going to do. So it's just so uncommon to hear anybody stay that long and then go up the ranks. That's just a great story, and
it's awesome.
You should totally have a book on that. We're going to do 2 questions real fast.
With all of his free time, Eric.
But it would be such a cool. But it would be such a cool story, and motivational story to hear about starting at the bottom and working all the way to the top. That's not. There's maybe.
I thought you were going to hit a Drake rap right there, but
almost.
Yeah,
that almost. Great. You don't want to hear me do anything along those lines. It's just weird. But just the inspirational story. I mean, seriously, how many people do you think have had that kind of role and move up the ranks like that to running a company as large as Dish? It's not. And so I think it's a cool story.
Mm-hmm.
2 rapid fires. Keith, start us out.
Right.
So we can get a little bit of fun stuff about you.
Yes.
And we'll
this
dive
one
into
is totally selfish. I build my reading list based off of recommendations from this podcast. So favorite book or podcast this year, ever, whatever time frame you prefer, and why?
Yeah. So when I've heard folks answer this question, and I know your selfishness, Keith, so I'm going to answer with kind of a multiple choice type of version, so I can give you more content. But
thanks.
Look at first off, outside of this podcast, of course.
Yes. Checks in the mail, Venmo.
That's right. That's right. So one thing, Keith, that you'll enjoy is I do start with a little meditation. So meditations every day.
Love it.
For me, on the podcast front, I do follow that up with Ryan Holiday and the Daily Stoic. I try to listen to that most days. Yep. As you can imagine right now, I'm listening to a lot of podcasts. I'm not going to front those on your show here.
That's okay. That's all right.
Like, we
don't care. If it's valuable, go ahead.
I'm trying to catch up on the industry because I'm obviously new to it, right?
Yeah.
But I don't miss Prof G every week. So that would be kind of one that I don't miss. I think it's good information. It keeps me a bit in a tech world, entrepreneurial branding. I like what he says about young men and his crusade there. And I find it entertaining and a slightly a way to get away.
Yeah.
Now, on the books, I'm going to go to the books too real quick.
Go.
So I got to plug Perfect 10 for Dave Liniger, our founder and fearless leader.
Yeah.
I mean, it is a good read. It's a good read.
It is a great read. Yes. It is better than a good read. It is a great read. Yeah.
And it's like, even if you've been in leadership for a long period of time, it's good to go through that. It's a great reminder and kind of how to stay focused.
And no one but Liniger could have written that book the way it was written. Like you absolutely get the sense of who he is as a leader and a person through that book. It's a great read. It's a fun
and if
read.
You haven't done Everybody Wins, you should read that one too. It's great. So, but really, with the Buffini Group's current kind of certification process on the CFSP, he has Will Guidara on, which I don't know if you know much about Will, but 11 Madison, Unreasonable Hospitality. It's really a good book, and it relates to kind of any line of business. And so, like, I started talking a little bit about selling something. Heck, if you can work in hospitality and deal with that, I mean, those are just great life skills to have to build your future on.
His book, Will's book, is the most. I've gifted that book more times this year than any other book. It's my favorite book of 2024. It was phenomenal. I recommend everyone read it. Has so many direct applications to residential real estate, and oftentimes these very popular business books have some loose correlations to residential real estate, but I think it's highly transferable to residential real estate. It's a must read, in my opinion.
Yeah, no, exactly. And so it can help you from a business perspective, but also you can translate a lot of that into your personal life or, how you're leading your kids. I mean, all that kind of good stuff. So
yeah. Happy spouse, happy house. Read the book.
All right, let's dive into some of the talking points because we've got a lot of stuff we want to get through. So I was reading in 2022, roughly, the company, let's just say, was worth, Dish, by the way, was worth over $20 billion. He had about 14,000 employees. God, I have an ulcer just saying that. You came to residential real estate in 2023, obviously very different business. But what are the similarities and differences that you've seen or learned between the two over the past year? Because I believe you started November of 2023. Is that correct? I believe I had that correct.
I did. Yeah. Right before Thanksgiving.
So you got a year. Tell us the similarities between those businesses and then the differences between the two. I'd love to hear your take on it as somebody coming into residential real estate.
Yeah, so I really think more probably similarities than differences, quite honestly. And I'll get into that in a minute. I mean, at least that's the perspective that I've chosen to take, right? One is like leadership's leadership.
Yeah.
Right.
Sure.
So whether you're dealing with your own team or a second level, like, for us, brokerages or agents or consumers, I mean, selling through different channels, I mean, those are fairly same from the business that I came from. The big difference is, it was a direct-to-consumer business. So today, nobody's calling me if their remote doesn't record their favorite show overnight, right?
I almost spit coffee everywhere. That was a very well timed, line. Right.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's a little bit of a different than, I mean, I don't mean to put real estate not in 24/7 because we have a bunch of entrepreneurs,
Yeah.
agents that are really doing a ton of work nonstop on behalf of their buyers or sellers, right? But
Right.
the pace of play is definitely a little bit of different when you're running like large scale D2C operations like that.
Yeah.
And both kind of, have obviously definitely a customer centric focus. I found, obviously we were knee deep in what customer behaviors were in my prior firm, and here we're, trying to do the same thing and
Sure.
and serve folks at that particular level. So, look at the product, totally different, right? But serving our customers, especially for Remax, a lot of similarities. Trying to help young entrepreneurs build businesses in communities, making them profitable, making them successful, whether that's a broker or an agent.
Yeah.
I'm 99% certain that an agent's been called about a remote not working
Oh,
for a television after a house gets sold. Like, I am 100% certain somebody's gotten that phone call.
Oh, for sure. For sure.
So,
And by the way, it's a gift that keeps on giving. Yeah, because whether I'm at a lovely industry event with you folks, I may be helping somebody with their pay TV subscription, or I'm still getting chatted up on Facebook about things that are broken.
Oh yeah, no, I've got your cell phone number now, so stay ready. Stay ready.
Yeah.
So you joined Remax just after they settled the big Sitzer Burnett case, which look like. First of all, what the hell were you thinking? Like, why are you going to parachute in to that hot mess? It has to be one of the toughest times in residential real estate, right? And my guess is you had experienced tough things in your leadership career prior to that, so that as you observe the landscape, you're like, no, I got this. I understand where we are in time and space. Just talk us through that thought process of what prepared you to know that you weren't that worried about this industry, this company, to make that choice.
Well, I think first and foremost, it's like, I think in times of like adversity, crisis, challenge, chaos, however you want to phrase that, one is that, I'd rather run into the fire than run away from it.
Yeah, me too.
Because I think great things can happen from running into the fire.
Mm-hmm.
Bad things can too, don't get me wrong. But
yeah, you can still get burnt.
That's right.
The views expressed by her guests are their own. Right.
Got the good disclaimer there.
Yeah.
But look, I love challenges. I love, being curious, trying to innovate. One of the reasons I joined Remax was like I had a discussion because I left Dish after 28 years, right? And that, it was kind of a parting of ways, and it was time for me to try to figure out something else to do. We had just become empty nesters. I wanted to take some time off, but an insider called me and said, "Hey, we're looking for a CEO. Are you interested?" And I met the lead independent, and I was just I fell in love with him.
Mm-hmm.
I thought his story was cool. And then I met Dave. And like I knew of Dave because I lived in Denver.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So I knew of the legacy and the aura. And, sometimes I play golf next to his house or whatever, right? All these types of things, right? But I met Dave and I was just I just fell in love with the guy. I thought this is such a cool story. He's such a cool founder. He's such a great entrepreneur. Like, I would love to come and work for this guy. And I would love to come and try to just finish out this legacy on a super high note. And then obviously you got the brand, the worldwide thing, all that kind of good stuff.
Sure.
But what I would tell you then, Keith, to getting back to the lawsuit is, okay, so you settled it, right? So I don't have to kind of go through that mess.
Right.
Now there's other messes, but those are just opportunities, right? And every industry faces adversity, whether it's lawsuits or competition. And so I always think about what you can control and what you can't control. And you kind of focus on what you can control, right? And then you game plan around those uncontrollable events to, get yourself more ready to respond. And I just figured that, look at coming into a company like this with such a great brand and like the industry being a little bit of chaos, I just subscribed to the idea that through chaos comes opportunity.
Absolutely.
And I'm hoping that I can make a difference here.
Yeah.
You went through, I'm assuming, I haven't done any research on it, but I'm assuming Dish got sued somewhere in those 28 years. And you've been through some of that litigation. So you've got this experience coming into it going, okay, I've worked with the lawyers. I've been through this before. We've taken our hits and moved on. Are you concerned about more litigation here based upon what you've learned in the past year? Do you feel like that the industry is still at risk? The DOJ is taking some pretty strong stances recently. What's your take on all of that you're willing to share?
Well, look, first off, on like any kind of DOJ or lawsuit speculation, I would get my best news from you or maybe Rob and Greg at Industry Insiders, right? So you guys should help guide us. But on a more serious note, I think litigation is part of doing business. Some industries, some companies are more litigious than others. I think what you have to do is, it's kind of hard to speculate, but again, you can only control so much, right? And so you have to really focus on that and then game plan around what you think may happen from an uncontrollable perspective. I don't think it's over for us, just because I think that there's opportunistic people out there that got one bite of the apple, and they'll probably figure there's another bite to be had.
I'll tell you, I had this conversation today with a friend, and there's all these debates going on about whether you can modify your buyer rep agreement or not. And I'm like, okay, well, the lawyers have come out with their position on it.
How's that still a debate?
It's still a debate. I'm like, NAR came out and said you can't modify your buyer rep agreement because the seller's offering more compensation. And we were kind of just going back and forth a little bit. And I said, look, it doesn't actually matter. And I mean this respectfully to all the people that are listening. It doesn't matter whether, at the end of the day, if the lawyers believe that they're right, the legal system in this country is designed in such a way that they can sue for anything. And the process is expensive, burdensome. It's a mess. And settlement is the reason why most cases settle, is because it's cheaper than going to trial. So I keep reiterating to everyone that it's important to pay attention to this, whether you agree with it or not, on where the lawyers' positions are to avoid further litigation. For the comment that you made, I'm not saying this is yours, Erik, it's just my opinion, but you said they took one bite at the apple, and I'm in the same camp going, they want another bite at it. And we have to be smart about doing things in a way that they don't come back at it again. So
to me,
and I think, when this stuff kind of happens, right? I mean, it is controllable and uncontrollable events. I think it's really important to focus on kind of why we're here, right? And for me, I always think about that buyer and seller, and that huge financial decision and that very large emotional decision that we're trying to shepherd folks through, right? And I hear you guys do a great job talking about it, but for us, it's like our customers are trying to support, obviously, our agents, our brokers, and give those folks the tools to succeed so they can be successful with that unbelievable purchase of owning a home and that experience. And so I think if you always kind of focus in on your customer, you can't go too far wrong.
Right. Totally agree with you.
Yeah. And I think sometimes the problem is agents, boots on the ground, they're really good at focusing on what their client needs. And they're not legal scholars. They're not in it because they love paperwork. They're not in it because of the logistics of the machinations of helping someone. They're in it because they like helping someone. So they look to outside educators, outside leaders for direction. They get bad advice and then they act on that bad advice, right? And that's why you've got these sort of two camps doing two different things in the industry. And we've got to try to push through that, because I don't think there are too many agents who aren't thinking about who they serve. They are, and they go seek counsel and they get bad advice, and then they execute on that bad advice. And I don't know the solution there, but I just believe, of course, there are the small percentage of agents who are crappy agents and aren't professional and all of that stuff.
It's in every industry.
It's in every industry. But I think a vast majority of them wake up every day and want to serve their clients at the highest level, and they're just getting bad advice.
And I think, folks are also, because in times of change like this, I mean, you want to know where the sidelines are. What is the rule book, right? And if there's a simple checklist, I can follow it. When it's more ambiguous, it's harder. And so that provides additional noise in the system.
Yeah. So I have a question, and this isn't on the list, so feel free to not answer if you don't want to. But what I feel like, actually, when I really stop and think about it and can get above the chaos, we've actually relatively quickly gotten some clarity. Now, I wish we had all the clarity sooner, but August, September, October, November, so we're 3 months into this, and I feel actually like we're starting to get concretized on the right way to do things, and we're landing in the right places. What are your thoughts about that? Do you feel like the industry is responding quickly, slowly, just right? Goldilocks it for me.
Yeah, I think that, I mean, what I said kind of, I guess, because I get to make public statements every quarter.
Yeah.
And you don't have to answer something if you don't want to, by the way.
Feel free to.
You guys get to make them every week.
Yeah. Ours are, people's financial lives aren't dependent on what we say.
Yeah.
But I think that, I tend to agree with you, Keith, but I do think there's still a lot of, we'll just call it folks in the network that are testing different scenarios, right? So maybe it's, how do I build my value prop? Is this buyer agreement or seller agreement, right?
Great point.
All these types of things. So there's a lot of new models being tested. And although there may be some kind of stability or understanding of the rule set, although that could change too, there's just a lot of noise in the system right now. I don't think that probably takes, a year to shake out until we get some clarity. And I think part of that also is, there's a longer sales cycle here, right? In my old business, if I launched something, on a streaming app, you'd know day one if it was good or bad for customers. Here, it takes a while to get through the system.
Let's be honest. There's a decent percentage of agents in the industry that haven't had a buyer since these changes went into effect. Right.
Well, it's going to be a majority of them.
Well, that was James Dwiggins that said that in a
that's
microphone.
Not meant to be a. That's not meant to be
kidding.
It's just a fact. Like there's people. 70% of the agents do 1 or 2 deals a year, and they come in and they're. I mean, I was talking with a buddy of mine who runs a big company as well, and he was just like, "Yeah, we've been talking about it for like a year," and people go like, "Wait, the contract's changed?" It's
it's not real until it's real for them, right? And
well, it's interesting. Yeah, I mean, a lot of the qualitative feedback that we're getting is, and I think I mentioned this in the last earnings call, is our network's telling us like we're showing up at the table, and obviously the Remax team does a few more deals than others from a productivity perspective. But
that was a serious humble brag, Eric. That was solid. Well done. Way to flex just a little bit. Go ahead.
Hold on, if I pick my microphone up, I'll
have you seen my water bottle, by the way? Okay, sorry.
Yes, I love it. Oh, it's the best.
But it's kind of coaching the agent on the other side and helping them through the transaction. So I think we have another 6 months to 9 months to go.
Press through it. Yeah.
A last one on mine, and then I'll move to another question that's relevant to a conversation you and I had, which I thought was interesting. But do you think just what you're comfortable with? There's a lot of people talking about administration change, what that's going to have an effect on. Keith and I talk about this daily. I've been trying to understand, tariffs are traditionally inflationary. That's not necessarily good for getting rates down. There's lots of talk out there. Do you have any thoughts on what you're hearing right now from the new administration on whether it's going to be good for housing or not? Any feedback that you're willing to share?
I think it's just a little bit too early to tell right now.
I feel like I'm talking to Keith.
People ask me, and I'm like, I can't.
There's a lot of people wasting time on it. There's no doubt.
Facts. And I'm like, look, I can't give you advice off of tweets. I can't. Like, if you show me a plan and exactly what that's going to look like, and I'm excited to see it, and I remain optimistic and hopeful, but I can't give you feedback off of tweets. It's just impossible.
All right, I'll move it to this next question, and then I know Keith's got some follow-up here too. So I remember having a cocktail with you, and you and I were talking about workforce efficiency. It was around this idea of having really, really deep insight on what your workforce was doing at Dish, and just being able to see every aspect of it to make the business more efficient, make better decisions, what's working, what's not. And in real estate, it feels like it's the opposite of that. Do you see that changing? Like, what's your take on coming from an industry where you could know everything that was happening to an industry now where it's kind of like, I don't know what anybody's doing out there. Do you see that changing in time? Like the business is going to become more efficient. We're going to have more insights on what people are doing. What's your thoughts around that?
Sure. I mean, it's a great question. I think it's just, some of it is, whether like you're in a direct-to-consumer type of atmosphere or the maturity of kind of the different businesses. But like I come from a operator mindset, so I always think like you can get better every day. So part of it is obviously, the business I ran, I wanted certain aspects of things in order to try to make it better. And I do definitely see it changing, right? So, and by the way, I see us helping it change here at Remax. And like, eventually all businesses change. right? So go back to bookstores, taxi cab drivers, whatever it is, right? Consumers' wants and needs change over time. COVID, by the way, accelerated that.
Sure.
I think that technology through data, automation, et cetera, helps us enable change, which then, by the way, makes it easier to implement and change faster, which in some cases the consumer wants, and in some cases it doesn't. Today, look, technology is a very low barrier of entry.
Right.
I mean, if you just look at the stats recently, the Shopify stuff over Thanksgiving, it's quite amazing how much is being bought and sold by millennials on social platforms right now, right? So, and so I think as it relates to real estate, I do see, and I'm interested in your feedback here too, but I do see us having a lot of shiny objects. And those shiny objects, because of the acceleration and the pace that you can change, it causes more people, kids in their garage to build stuff, which is great. Right. Yeah. It's great for innovation. But I do think that we have a little bit of a shiny object syndrome when we chase stuff. We chase stuff probably because we're entrepreneurs and we want the best for our customers and we want a competitive advantage, right? So when I think about that, I think that's where like a brand like Remax can come in. We work with obviously our extraordinary network of brokers and agents, and we can help find great solutions and help guide them through that to make good choices to enable us collectively to improve kind of the broker, agent, and consumer experience. And so, look, I think it's only going to get faster. And yes, this industry will catch up.
Just real quick, what was some of the things that you guys were able to track at Dish? Like, did you have an idea where your drivers were and what they were doing? And I mean, can you give me like some insights on some really cool analytics that you use to make your business better and more profitable?
So
that's not like a trade secret.
No,
whatever. He left. Let it rip.
I mean, look, Uber launched, and I told the team, I said, I want that. Like, I want that immediately because this is a while back, so this is not new information. Everyone gets it, but like one of the worst things about waiting for an appointment, that can be an appliance repair guy or your cable TV guy. In my case, satellite. Is when is that person going to show up at your home?
Right. The window between 11 and 11, right? yeah.
Or next week.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Sometime.
Yes.
But really, I mean, we were like no other. We had like an AM and PM appointment window, but I thought if I could provide a Where's My Tech app where customers within 45 minutes could see a technician and starting to track them in, they could leave work at that point in time. They could prepare their day, get back from the grocery store, the gym, wherever they were, and meet that tech up. And by the way, see a picture of that tech so they knew who they were greeting at the door. And that was like, I don't know, 13, 14, 15. I can't remember exactly when I launched that, but I knew one of our competitors were close. And I'm like, I was like, we got to be first. We've got to be first.
Yeah.
And so I mean, that's just a cool innovation. But Keith, it comes back to really, what does the customer want?
Right.
And where's their frustration or pain point, and how can we solve it through, by the way, it's always people, process, technology. So that was like a bunch of process, but then you snap on a little technology on top of it.
All at the service
Uber
of the
had
people.
Given you.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah. It's also so simple when you really like can step out of the battle frenzy of operating a business, right? And I think sometimes, I know I get stuck with this all the time working on our company. It's like sometimes when I'm in it, I gotta get out of it to really think about it strategically. Because when I'm in the fray, when I'm in the frenzy, I'm just throwing punches and like making moves, right? And do you have a process? I'm off script again, shocker. But do you have a process for that? Like, do you take a chunk of time a quarter and just go to the mountaintop and think about it, or is it more in your daily practice? But how do you balance working in the business and working on the business? Because I think that's something that as an industry we struggle with, and as human beings we struggle with. So I'd love any insight you have on that.
Yeah, so a couple things. One is I try to, I have a morning routine, and there's a portion of time I try to carve out just to think about the business.
Yep.
Right. So some of that, maybe that's shower time.
Yeah.
In the steamer, maybe that's sitting on the couch, just in a dark space, trying to think about what's going on. I try to do that twice a day, the morning and at night. Yep. And I also try to take some trips. So I just got back with the family, and we had a nice time off. But I always carve out some time, or it's really kind of, whether it's walking on the beach or hiking a mountain, whatever it is, to like think about, hey, what's not only going on in my life to make it better personally with, my family, my wife, all that kind of good stuff, but also my career aspirations, but then the business and how can we make it better? And what are crazy things? And like, I'm an operator at heart, and I'm not like, I'll be in a line anywhere and I'll be thinking about like, how can I make this line better? And by the way, how does it apply to the business that I'm running right now? Right.
Oh my God.
And
you
some
and
of
I
those ideas are nuts.
We cannot hang out. I'm the same. Yeah. That's wild.
It's interesting to me because if you think about this analogy you just used with a dish, and I was just equating it to it. So I had a HERS testing for my air conditioning heating system. I don't even know what the hell it was, but the point was they gave me a window, and I'm like everybody else. I have a lot of shit going on. And so like that window was like 4 hours, and I'm trying to figure out like, can my nanny get the front door? Like, is my wife going to be here? I've got a 3.5-year-old that's sick, blah, blah, blah. And it's just, if I could see stuff, I could go, I know when they're showing up,
right? I
can make some adjustments to my day. And it's simple things. And this is the comment I'm making here is, we talked about this a lot. I'm not going to go on floor plans, Keith, don't worry. But there's the new study from NAR on home buyer and seller survey they do, which I think is a fantastic survey. Yeah. And they ask them these questions about, what do you want? What's the experience? I sometimes think we forget, if you just ask your client what they want in an experience, they're going to tell you, and you build your business just around that experience, you're solving the very need of what they're looking for. And sometimes I feel like, because you mentioned this, Erik, shiny object syndrome. There's so much shiny stuff that I'm like, did anybody actually ask the buyer and seller if they want that? Did that actually make their life better? And
well, again, like, it's like, keep the end customer in mind. And then why do you want the data you have? It should only help you make better informed decisions to improve your business model or to improve the experience.
Yeah, you're right. Right.
Yeah.
Right. And I just think sometimes we get distracted. We're thinking about the consumer. I even hate that word. So we're thinking about the human being who buys and sells houses. But it's too easy to take any piece of technology and sort of be like, well, this will help, right? And yeah, maybe, but is it central? Is it key? Are you solving a specific problem? I do a lot of demos of different products and look at just about everything as it is entering the marketplace. And I just try to anchor deeply into what's in it for the human being who is buying and selling a house. And when I do that, we pick better products. And when I screw that up, we pick inferior products, because that has to be the holy grail, right?
Got to stay focused. Yeah. Stay focused.
You want to?
Let me ask this one question, then we'll move to the final because of just time's sake. But so I would love for you to give. You've been here for a year, and just the craziest time to join residential real estate. I promise you, it gets better. By the way, at some point, the industry isn't this chaotic all the time. At least I hope. So what's your long-term vision for RE/MAX over the next 36 months? And then I would really love your perspective on where you think the industry as a whole ends up in 36 months as well. Like, what's that vision, both for your vision for the company and then also where you think the industry looks like in 36 months?
Well, look, obviously I've talked about this. I mean, our vision is like, we want to be the best in real estate, right? And so like, that's our North Star and what we're focused on. And we have a lot of, great folks that are helping to support that day in and day out. And we still have opportunities, especially in times of change. But, I'm here, I want to be the best, right? I'm a winner, and I want to be number one. So you can think about what that means. But, on a more day-to-day aspect, I mean, it's about driving efficiency and growth. And I've got a growth mindset. And I think RE/MAX is, a wise person told me this. It's like RE/MAX is kind of like the Dallas Cowboys. When they're doing better, the NFL's doing better. And I guess if I'm not, and by the way, I'm not a Cowboys fan, I'm a Bears fan.
Yeah, you're about to get messages. You're about to get messages.
But I'd like the NFL to do better. And so if I can help, the industry do better by having RE/MAX do better, we're focused on getting back to growth and doing great things again. And but really it starts with kind of our agents, those buyers and sellers and our brokers, and putting together a great team. So, I'm happy to be here. It's been a real fun year, and I know it's been chaotic, but at least I have not had to fight with any programmers and take down anybody's TV. So
See,
that's
silver
been
linings.
extraordinary.
Silver linings.
I was thinking about this just kind of anecdotally when you mentioned the satellite thing. I bought a house in the mountains a while ago, and it was Dish. No offense, I think you were still there. You were there at the time. They installed it on the roof. I knew nothing about mountain homes, by the way. I was new idiot from the city. And we had it installed, and that November we had 4.5 feet of snow in a storm come through. And apparently satellite dishes on a 2-story building is not a good idea in the mountains because it gets covered in snow. It don't work. So needless to say, that satellite dish is still there, but it's got a cord that's disconnected to it. And I was just thinking about I'm like, I think that thing's still on my damn roof. So
James, that actually sounds like DirecTV, because I'm sure the installer when I was there would have had a better solution for you.
Probably. It probably is. But you reminded me of satellite dishes, and I'm like, I think that thing's still up there. All right. Key, take us home.
I got the last question, but first, this is just, look, I'm just going to steal this. Have you ever read Peak Mind? You've mentioned meditation a couple times. That's why I brought it up.
I have not read Peak Mind.
Okay.
But that's a referral? Okay.
Yeah, I'll send you the book. I will drop it in the mail to you. It is about the science of meditation and why it works and how it retrains your brain and rewires the neural pathways in the brain. So it's very nerdy. I think you'll dig it. I will send you the book.
And I'm surprised I don't get to do the podcast question, or is this it?
No,
it's coming right now. Don't worry. So,
right now.
Final question. If you were an agent or a brokerage, which makes sense since, you run a big giant one, what's the one thing you'd implement today to help drive your business forward?
Look, there's not one thing. I think it always starts with people for me. So it's a strong culture. So if you could turn, if you could change the switch and just have a strong culture with the right vision, the team, the motivation. I mean, look, with that, you can accomplish almost anything, whether it's known or unknown. So I would be working on the people aspect of my business and the culture and the tone that I want to set.
I love it. I have a follow-up to that. I know you're about to wrap, James, but I'm not going to let you.
No, you're fine. Yeah, go.
I love that answer because I think it's 100% accurate. And I find culture is one of those things that's so hard to evaluate. As someone who is I feel like we're similar in this. Like, I like data and I like numbers and I like to measure things so that I know that I'm creating efficiency and that it's working. How do you evaluate culture in an organization? Or is it just, you just feel it and you just kind of like vibes and you know it when you feel it?
It's a little bit of both, right? You have to have a few data points, and then I'll tell you, I'll go back to a prior story in running large call centers.
Yeah.
When you walked into one, you knew you didn't have to look at the data.
Immediately.
You knew if it was performing or not.
Yeah.
And I think obviously you guys have probably walked into a lot more brokerages than I have, but I've walked into quite a few.
Yep.
And you get a vibe.
Totally.
Right? You get an instant feel if people are there for the right reason, if they're connected to leadership, if they're connected to each other, if they're connected to a common purpose. And then obviously the data and other elements can help you make it better or change course a bit, whatever that is. But, I do think that there is a little bit of, Tennessee outhouse logic, so to speak.
Yeah.
Tennessee outhouse logic. I love it.
What also applies to agents when you meet them, you can tell just by talking with them that they're you can meet an agent and go, this is one who goes to client appreciation parties. The people love them. They hang out with, you can just tell that they've developed that culture.
I remember when I was doing a turnaround and I didn't have a concept of how to measure culture. I was struggling with this. This was decades ago. And I just decided we're just going to track attendance at team meeting. So I do a weekly meeting and we're just going to count heads, not even who. Eventually we got more sophisticated in who and what was their production and if someone missed, right? We got better at it. But initially it was just how many heads showed up for the team meeting every week. And if that was growing, I figured the culture was doing better. And if that was shrinking over time, I figured the culture was getting smaller. So you don't have to have Venn diagrams and Harvard Business School MBA reports. You can just pick something that you think measures it and then start measuring it and see and extrapolate over time.
I mean, engagement's a big thing. I don't know if it was Chaplin or whatever, but 90% of life has shown up. So
that's right. That's right.
True.
Eric, what a fun conversation. Thank you for coming on the show.
Thanks for being here, my friend. Genuinely loved having you. And we'll have to have you back on next year for 2 years in and see where the hell all this craziness is. So
absolutely. And I just want to say that I appreciate both of you. I am a regular listener.
Thank you.
And the work you do. I appreciate your help and kind of indoctrinating me into this great industry that we're in. And I guess I'd say, hey, happy holidays to everyone out there. Enjoy time with family and friends and have a great new year.
Appreciate it.
Same
Thanks, buddy. We'll see you soon.
All right. See you guys.
Will subscribing to this podcast save the real estate industry as we know it? Yes, it absolutely will. Subscribe now and you'll be able to find out if I'm right.